Hello, Red-C Catholic Radio listener. You are listening to Red-C Roundup on KEDC 88.5 FM in the Brazos Valley, KYAR 98.3 FM in Central Texas, and KINF 107.9 FM in Palestine. Or you are watching on YouTube, and so we thank you for being here. I am Caleb Brawner, the Director of Radio and Media here at Red-C Catholic Radio, stepping in for Maria Sotolongo. And I have today with me Father Art Flores of the Missionary Oblates of Mary Immaculate. Hey, Father Art, how are you?
I'm good, thank you.
It's great to have you in the studio. I am really excited to talk to you today about a couple things, your call to the priesthood. I'm really interested in hearing about the saint who founded your order and hear all that stuff. So let's start with, what are you doing here at St. Mary's?
Well, it's been great being here at St. Mary's. I was given the opportunity to come and take Father Charlie Banks's place. Father Charlie Banks was here for about 17 years. And he assists the ministry of St. Mary's, the pastor, reaching out to the parishioners and to the students here on the campus. He would do that on Mondays. Well, he had gotten to the point where it was time to retire. Mm-hmm. And I had gotten to the point in my ministerial life where it was, I needed a new assignment. And so he tapped on my shoulder and said, would you be interested maybe in doing this? And I had never, in my 33 years of priesthood, I haven't done campus ministry. So I said, why not? Why not? And so, well, he passed my name on to Father Will and as a possibility. And so Father Will sat down with me a couple of times and chit-chatted and talked. And here I am. It really is wonderful to be here. When you come to the end of your assignment as a priest, you often wonder, well, where are you going to go next? Where's the Lord going to take me next? And I had asked that question many times, and the Lord brought me here, and so far so good. It's been really wonderful. Yeah.
So I was doing a little research on the Oblates of Mary Immaculate, and it's interesting. And I know you mentioned this to me. You mentioned this to me before. You know, a lot of what the Oblates do is going to poorer countries and disaster relief and helping out with the poverty-stricken. And so I was curious, what is it about campus ministry that fits into the overall mission of the Oblates?
Sure. Every religious order in the church has what's called a charism. And a charism is what drives the religious order. And the charism comes, it's a charismatic reality that comes from its founder. I guess we'll be talking about him in a little while, right? But the charism of our order is to reach out to those on the fringes of society, those who maybe are abandoned by society, the church, and a special, well, we believe a big expression of that is those who are economically challenged, but our founder, Saint Eugene, he also reached out to young people when he started our congregation, because he believed that they were. There was a poverty about them as well, in the sense of, I've talked about this many times. We do really well when we catechize our young kids, right? Mm-hmm. Our first communion and confirmation and our parish programs, and then they finish, and then go on, and they go off to college, and a lot of times, we lose them, we lose them. So there's a spiritual poverty that exists there. And so this fits in with our charism as well. And we're trying to put more oblates into campus ministry positions in different colleges, because we do want to reach out to the young people who many times might feel lonely, abandoned, and spiritually poor as well.
Yeah, especially nowadays when the rates of people feeling lonely and isolated are higher than ever before, which is so strange since we have all these technologies that should connect us. There's a hilarious short story by Mark Twain about the telephone, and he's hearing his wife talk on the telephone, so he's only hearing one side of the conversation. And so it's a story that I think really speaks to our time, like tenfold, because these things that are supposed to connect us, in turn, actually we are kind of isolated by them. Mm-hmm. And so I guess in talking to young people, you've been here for what, about 2 months or so? Mm-hmm. And talking to young people these last 2 months, what are you seeing? What are the ways in which they might have unique struggles today that maybe people didn't have, or what are their kind of biggest struggles that you're seeing talking to them and doing spiritual direction?
I think what a couple of things. They really are looking for a sense of purpose. I've seen that. And that's been enlightening for me as well, because sometimes we dismiss our young people and we dismiss them as not irrelevant, but there's they're not mature enough and so forth. But they are looking, they are struggling, and they are looking for a sense of purpose, and they see that in the church. They do see the church offering them a sense of purpose and stability. So they're trying to understand themselves. Very, very many times, especially when they're finishing their college career, they get a little bit of anxiety is what's going to happen to me? Where am I going to go? Mm-hmm. Am I going to find a job? I've noticed some pressures, maybe from society and even family as well, putting a lot of pressures on them as well. But just trying to understand who they are and who God is. Mm-hmm. They're trying to understand that, and they want to talk about that. And this is it. It's refreshing in the sense that it's good to see that they are taking themselves seriously.
Yeah. Yeah. And you have a little bit of a teaching background before you became a priest. Uh-huh. And, as a teacher, I would rather see a kid be frustrated but engaged than completely indifferent. There's something to be said for, even if you're struggling in your faith, there's something to be said for engaging in that struggle. And that I think that you really see, a lot here at St. Mary's. That is a good thing to see, a great thing to see. Mm-hmm. So tell us a little bit more about your call to the priesthood, and what made you decide to join the Oblates, and what did that look like? Because you were a teacher before.
I was, yeah. Cradle Catholic. My parents, we went to Mass every Sunday. The foundational aspects of my Catholic faith come from the family, and with a lot of encouragement from Mom and Dad. But they were always very engaged with us. There's 3 of us. I'm the youngest, but they were, oyes mijos, what do you all want to do when you grow up? They were always asking us, and and Mom told me, and I remember responding that way as well. Mom, Dad, I want to be a priest, a dentist. I don't know why a dentist. A priest, a dentist, or a teacher. There were a lot of teachers. I have uncles and aunts who were teachers. Mm-hmm. I have an aunt who is also a religious sister. She's passed away. So a lot of good influences in terms of my Catholic upbringing. And I also had an uncle who had entered into the seminary until I met my aunt.
Okay.
and so very familiar, with priests and religious and so forth. So in college, in high school, I went to St. Anthony's Catholic High School, and that was run by the Oblates of Mary Immaculate.
Okay.
And the Oblates are not a teaching order per se. The high school was there as basically to get vocations, to encourage young men in their vocational call. And so as a young kid, I saw that. In high school, I saw the priests and the good work that they did. They entered into the lives of all of their students. They were so kind and so generous and such hard workers. And it's so, just with growing up and everything and what I saw in them, I said, this is what I want to do. So I continued after St. Anthony's. There was a formation a program that continued for the Oblates. I was pretty set on religious life as well. I knew about the diocesan reality as well, but community life was very, very important for me. And so I continued in my formation in college. I did leave formation and graduated from college. I went to St. Edward's University in Austin, graduated, and that's where the teaching part came in.
Okay. Can we rewind real quick?
Sure.
To something you were talking about before. You were saying you were real familiar with, priests and religious in your family. So would you say that I'm sure that had a big impact on your eventual decision to become a priest, kind of the familiarity of it. And so, we're going to be talking about families a little bit more when we're talking about St. Eugene in a little while, but what can people do to maybe build kind of familial or relationships between their family and priests to try and maybe introduce the idea of priesthood or something and religious life to their children? How to navigate that? Because I think there's a real nowadays kind of like there's a little bit of a block there. It seems like to me. And so how do you build that relationship and help, if you don't have religious in your family, how do you help kind of like expose your children to that kind of life? And
clearly there needs to simply be an openness to that with your kids. The biggest stumbling block, along with the campus ministry that I do, I also do vocation promotion. But the biggest stumbling block that young men and women have to the priesthood or to the religious life are parents. They don't want their kids to enter into the religious life. They think they're going to be lonely and or unhappy, or they want grandchildren, or so how do you? I think you foster a relationship by being open to God's call in your life and to listening to God's call, and if your young one has that calling, to be open to that. God calls each of us, and His call is true and pure, and so with or without other religious in the family, I did have that that plus. I was very familiar with priests and nuns and so forth, but I think it's very important for parents to remember, God has given them these children, and to be open to what God has in store for them is very, very important and very good. Yeah. Okay,
so you were at St. Edward's and you got the teaching bug.
And I got I graduated from St. Ed's with a degree in math, and so I went and taught. I went and taught in an all-girls Catholic high school in San Antonio, Providence Catholic High School. And so I was on my own. And the reason why I left the formation program is because I thought, let me take a step back. Let me think about this a little bit more. And so that's what I did. So I taught, and I enjoyed teaching. I even math. It seems like students always complain about math, but I did enjoy the interaction that I had with the young people. But God simply just didn't stop tapping on my shoulder. It was there.
Can you describe what that is like? Like I know it's hard, and we've talked about this before. It's easy to distill it into just a turn of phrase or one or two sentences that makes it sound like it was like this epiphany moment. But maybe can you describe like an instance or what that kind of tapping on your shoulder, how you detected that in your own life? Because I'm sure there's a lot of people that have a hard time hearing those subtle messages from God and their call. And so, how did you translate that tapping on your shoulder, and what did that look like for you?
Sometimes when I look back on that, and I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know, but I've always, God speaks to us through others. And I look back on that, and I can see that. My students would come up to me and, get help with their homework and so forth, and then they just look at me and say, "You should be a priest." They would just come out and say that. And, somebody who might not want to be listening to God might not listen to that. I look back on that, and that it didn't happen one or two times. It happened many, many times. And even other teachers, said, have you ever considered the ministry? And, I just feel, okay, I look back on that and say, okay, the Lord was speaking to me, and I acted upon it. There were many instances like that. I maintain, because of the strong foundation that I have growing up, I did maintain contact with my faith and practice my faith. That's a real big help.
Yeah.
That's a very big help as well. And so also I can say through prayer experiences, I just said, okay, Lord, I know you're calling me. Give me a little bit more time. And so then I did. I went back into formation, and
how old were you?
I was 28.
28. Okay. So you taught for?
I taught for 3 years.
3 years. Okay.
And it was great. I look back on all of that, on my time away, and it was formative, important, substantial, good time, and it was productive. And I feel it was part of my formation process, even though I wasn't in a formal formation process.
Right. Yeah.
Taught me a little bit about the world,
probably patience.
Patience.
I know for me, teaching I learned a lot about patience teaching, for sure.
Yes.
It's really helped me. And also, how to talk to young people and how to, what's the right way to put it? It taught me how capable they can actually be if you let them. Kind of what you were talking about earlier. So that's really helped me with my children, I think, is you can really learn a lot about patience and how capable young people can be and children can be through teaching that you might not have realized before or
Absolutely.
Otherwise.
Even in my time here, I've told the kids that in Mass, I said, you all don't know what you're doing for me.
Yeah.
And the witness that you're giving to me by not simply by being here in Mass, but also engaging in your faith.
Yeah. Is doing missionary outreach here, campus ministry, is that kind of scratching that itch of like talking to young people a little bit and stuff? Because I know I feel that, after teaching for 8 years, and now all of a sudden I'm not, and I kind of miss kind of hanging out and talking and teaching and just being around young people, and they're funny.
They are. They're funny. They're inquisitive and curious and serious. We need to take them seriously.
Right.
And many of them are hurting, and they need for us to be there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So tell me about your formation, going into seminary, and taking vows and all that.
So I went back into formation, and the formation for a priest is pretty standard. It's the same for a religious or a diocesan priest. For a religious, all religious orders go through what's called a novitiate year, and you become a novice in the order, and it's a year where it really is a privileged time, because the religious order gives it's a year of prayer. That's basically what it is, and everything's scheduled for you. But you engage in some in many conversations on the history of the order that you're joining, and prayer and the vows that you're about to profess as well. So diocesan priests don't have a novitiate year, but all religious orders do. I really enjoyed my novitiate year. I loved it back in 1987, 88. And at the end of that year, then you profess your vows, and you become a member of that order, of the order.
Okay.
And and then after that, we continue in theological studies, and that's a 5-year process of 4 years of graduate school in theology, 1-year internship, and then you're ordained.
Wow.
And then.
So what did you expect? You went through all that, and what did you expect to do? Because there's missionary oblates all over the world, right?
All over the world, yeah.
And so did you expect to be here in Texas, or?
That's one of my favorite stories. I was young back then, and we're a missionary order all over the world. I'm bilingual, so I said, "Hey, send me down south. Send me anywhere. After my vows. After my ordination, send me anywhere." And they said, "Okay, all right, but hold on, we're gonna send you to Brownsville." So I did, some time there.
It's kind of another country.
It is. It is. I said, "Okay, I'm ready. Send me." I just kept saying that. I have my entire ministerial priesthood has been in the state of Texas, where I'm from, and half of that time has been in my hometown of San Antonio. So I joined a missionary order to see the world, and I stayed in my hometown most of the time. But
I bet your mom was happy about that.
Mom was thrilled. Yeah, she was thrilled. Yeah, but this is where the Lord needed me. The Lord needed me in Brownsville. After Brownsville, I went to Corpus Christi. After Corpus Christi, I came to San Antonio. After San Antonio, then I went up to Midland for a little while, and then to Eagle Pass, and then back to San Antonio, and then Washington D.C. for a little while too. And now I'm here. So I did go out of the state for a little while. But yes, that young missionary energy that I had, I guess, of course I still do. If the community asks me to go wherever, I'll go, But I think it's, God said, "This is where I needed you. This is where I needed you." And, God is a God of the unexpected. And I thought, the other thing that I thought, I'm going to be teaching. We have Oblates School of Theology. We still had St. Anthony's when I was the high school when I was first ordained. I thought, and everybody in the community thought, you're going to be teaching your entire oblate life. I've never taught one day in my life. I've been in parish ministry, internal ministry with the Oblates, and now campus ministry.
Yeah, that's so funny.
Mm-hmm.
Let's shift gears a little bit to, I don't want to run out of time and neglect talking about St. Eugene de Mazenod.
Mm-hmm.
Am I saying that right?
St. Eugene de Mazenod. Uh-huh.
St. Eugene de Mazenod. He founded the order.
Yes.
Tell us about St. Eugene and why he should while he's an kind of not super well known saint.
No, he's not very well known. Yeah.
Maybe we need to know more about him today.
Yes. I'd be happy to talk about St. Eugene. Eugene de Mazenod, he was part of the French aristocracy. His dad was an aristocrat, and his mother also. His mother was very, very wealthy. by the way. He grew up in privilege. He grew up in privilege, but he also grew up around the time of the French Revolution. So we know what happened at that time. There was a rebellion against the aristocracy. There was a rebellion against the church as well. And so as a young kid, he had to leave his home of Aix. He was from Aix in Provence, in the southern part of France.
Mm-hmm.
So he and his father, because his mother remained home, but he and his father they left. They had to leave in order.
His mother remained in France.
His mother remained in France because, not being technically a member of the aristocracy, her life wasn't in danger, but theirs were. So they left in exile. They went to Italy. And lived there for many years until everything boiled over, and then came back.
And in Italy, it was a kind of what we were talking about earlier, a priest that kind of took him under his wing a little bit, right?
You've done a little homework.
I have done a little homework.
Yes, you are now an honorary oblate. A Jesuit. In fact, it was a Jesuit priest that took him, that took Eugene under his care and helped him.
Because he wasn't doing formal school anymore.
He wasn't. Yeah, they were in exile. They were in exile. They had none of the comforts that they were used to. So yes, this Jesuit priest did reach out to him and help him and his dad. They returned back to Aix in Provence, and it was awful. You know, the churches were burned, and convents were burned, and things were in shambles. While he was in Italy, though, that's where he kind of got the beginnings of his call as well, too, to be a priest. His mother didn't want him to do that. Remember I told you about the parents?
Yeah.
He said, no, we have somebody ready for you to marry. And he said, Mom, I feel this calling to reach out to God's people in a special way. And so she supported him. She supported him, and he was ordained a diocesan priest. What drove him, though, was what he saw. The clergy were scattered. Many of them were killed. Priests, religious, nuns, they had no place. They didn't know what they were what to do. And the people too. Everything was in shambles. He wanted to reach out, but especially to the poor. They were the ones that were really forgotten during the ravages of the French Revolution. They were completely forgotten, and so he said we need to reconnect them with their faith and with God. And so that was his special. And the poor, the simple peasant farmer, that was the poor at the. But also the youth and prisoners. He also was very, very faithful to reaching out to prisoners as well. He wanted to connect them with their faith, back to their faith. So one of the things that he did that was very, very different was he reached out to the poor and spoke to them in their language, in Provençal.
Yeah.
And so they weren't doing that at that time. So
in the Vatican website, I was reading a little bit about him. It says not only in their language, but also kind of like at their level.
Right.
And so it's like meeting people where they are. Yeah. He wanted to make sure. He would always tell his oblates, make sure that they understand what you're saying. Yeah. Make sure that give them the bread of the Eucharist and chew it for them as well. That was one of his sayings. So that and reach out and make sure that they know that God loves them. He always told his oblates that. So he got a group of five. There was a group of five of them, diocesan priests. They lived in community, and then they would go out for about 5-6 months. They'd go out in mission, preaching missions, reconnecting people with their faith, and then they would come back and live in community. They became very famous, and so bishops started
asking them to come to their dioceses, and then the Oblates grew from there. While he was living in community, his parents divorced. This something unheard of at that time, and so this was a cause of big distress for him as well, and so it turned out there was with his going out on exile with his dad away from his mom, and then their eventual divorce and so forth. We call him the patron saint of dysfunctional families, of families who are dysfunction can be a hard word to hear, but families who are challenged and so forth. Yeah. His family certainly was challenged. What family isn't?
Oh, for sure.
And so the church encourages us to reach out to this not too well known saint.
Yeah.
To help you and your families as well. So.
Well, one of the things I learned teaching at that school for boys that had committed sexual offenses is, devastation among their families. If their parents had at one time been married, which was pretty rare, they were now divorced or separated and stuff like that. And even something like that, your parents getting divorced when you're a child can cause like psychological trauma. And that's so common today that, we have all these people out in the world with this childhood brain trauma. It causes like physiological things to happen in your brain. Mm-hmm. And the fact that we don't, that divorce is so common and we don't really take it as seriously as we should, in our society, and like the effects of it on children. And I remember my wife, when we first started dating, she asked me if my parents' divorce had, any effect on me or anything like that. I'm like, what? No, I've got no trauma, no baggage. That's a joke now. It's like, oh no, I have no trauma. And my parents had a pretty amicable divorce. They're friends and stuff. They can be in the same place. So I'm in a much better situation than a lot of people. But as I'm, getting further into my marriage, I'm seeing some of those scars that are there. Mm-hmm. And so, we have only about 10 minutes left. How should we be praying for St. Eugene's intercession, for our families and, the families we see in our communities and stuff like that? Can you, what else about him that should we know, I guess?
Mm-hmm. Well, in terms of when he banded with these five, there was a group of five of them. Mm-hmm. One of the things that was very important for him was praying. For an entire calendar year, they would go out on mission, and then they would come back. They would go out on mission for about half of the year and then come back for the other half. 6 months, they were together and praying. Families aren't praying anymore. Families are in crisis. We know they're in crisis. They're, to see a family with a mom and a dad and 2 kids, I mean, you're rare. You're a rarity now. I think St. Eugene can reach out. If we reach out to St. Eugene and look at the story of his life and see how he was blessed with a lot of earthly goods, but spiritually he was lacking in many, many things. A society that rejected him, parents who were having difficulties that led to their divorce. But he saw the importance of being in community and praying together. If we reach out to him through prayer, he can. I truly believe he can help us in repairing some of the damage that has been caused to many of our families through divorce and through lack of a good father figure and a good mother figure too. He longed for that. He founded a community to reach out to those who were lacking in that spiritual reality. I think he has a lot to offer us if we and one of his best influences is we need to get back to prayer. One of the things that he taught his oblates, when he would send them out on mission, he'd never see them again. Back in those days, you put them on a ship and they go to the United States, they go to India, they go to Canada. That was it. He would say goodbye to them forever. But he asked all his oblates, always go before the Blessed Sacrament in oraison. L'oraison was very, very important for the community. He asked everybody to do it at 5:00. But and so that's what we do. We still do that. We band together and we pray. We sit before the Blessed Sacrament for at least half an hour, and we feel that we're in community with the rest of our brothers. I think prayer can restore the soul of many people who might feel lost. He's a wonderful example of that, He didn't allow the devastation of the civil reality, France, what was going on in the revolution. He didn't allow that, or the devastation of his divorced parents to stop him.
Well, it sounds like in some ways he, those tribulations and him seeking God through those tribulations led to, his great zeal for the faith. Mm-hmm. I've read, he even went and asked the Pope directly to form the order.
He did, yeah. He said, I have a group of, it started growing. The order started growing, and he said, we need to get official approbation from the church. And so he went to the Pope and asked him.
Yeah, I even read that, because of his zeal, Eugene had been dubbed a second Paul. That some people called him a second Paul. Yeah.
You really did do your homework.
I did do a little bit. I did.
They did call him a second Paul because of the missionaries that were sent all over. I mean, we're in 66 countries now.
How do we tap into that zeal for the faith?
I think if a true appreciation of what our faith. We have such a rich, beautiful faith that is one of love. And open up the gospel. It's a gospel of love, irrefutable gifts that God has given to us. That was in today's gospel, our first reading from St. Paul. But the gospels are filled with love, forgiveness, just an appreciation of that. The beautiful gifts that God has given to us through the revelation given to us through His Son, and if we can just sit down and appreciate that, I think it could be very, very helpful. And St. Eugene said, just tell people how much Jesus loves them. And he tells us, carry the cross with you wherever you go. And we do that. We at our perpetual oblation, when we become oblates forever, we get a big cross. And we're always reminded, through the suffering, there is resurrection. Yeah. It just seems like the world is so rough. Families are so torn. Is there a like a scripted prayer to St. Eugene that you know of that you could share with us, or anything like that? His dying words, which we call it a prayer amongst us oblates, when he was about to go, he said, charity, charity, charity amongst yourselves. And zeal for the salvation of souls. So we kind of, that's kind of our little mantra, our little prayer. We try to have charity and zeal for the salvation of souls wherever we go. Yeah, I saw another quote that was the glory of God, the good of the church, and the sanctification of souls. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think, if we can have more charity with one another, maybe with members of our family, maybe with, and have that zeal for the salvation of souls, the sanctification of souls, the ones that we are entrusted with, and the ones that we've chosen as our spouses, as our friends, the ones that we have in our community, we could do great things like St. Eugene. He told us to leave nothing undared.
Leave nothing undared.
Yeah. It's kind of hard at my age, but I'm going to try.
Leave nothing undared.
Leave nothing undared. Yeah.
That's beautiful. That's, for some reason, when you were saying Mass this evening, I was really struck by when we said the Lord's Prayer, we dare to say. And for some reason, that really stuck out in my mind this evening. Because it is kind of a, it's kind of an outrageous thing to say. It would have been outrageous to like the Jews at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And so, if we can only dare to accept God's love and hear his call, like you were saying.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, we are almost out of time. Father Art, can you give us a blessing to send us out?
Sure.
Yeah.
The Lord be with you. May Almighty God bless you, Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit, and leave nothing undared.
Leave nothing undared. Thank you so much for listening to Red-C Catholic Radio and Red-C Roundup. If you are watching on YouTube, please like and subscribe. If you are listening on the radio, check out our content online. Go to our email list at redcradio.org/subscribe. We've got a lot of great things going on that we want to share with you. And remember, when considering the things of heaven and earth, always round up.